Today, after the historic Staten Island unionization vote at Amazon, will other Amazon employees follow suit?
Then Florida Governor Ron DeSantis takes on Disney. He's even got Fox News leading the charge.
But if Fox is anti-Disney, then why did they sell 20th Century Fox to Disney in 2019 for $71 billion?
In this environment, can and how should corporations take a stand? And what if they don't?
I am Stephen Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward.
I'm Laura Fitton. Let's launch.
Laura, I gotta say, looking at the rundown for today's pod, we are right smack in the middle of really complicated social change, and tech, couldn't be more front and center. It's terrible to say I'm looking forward to this pod, but I am. And let's just start in Staten Island. And let me ask you, just to get right to the meat of the question, have you ever been to Staten Island?
I actually have. Took the ferry out one time. Very, just for the day. I think we just went and came back. So I don't know much about it, but I know it's a very unique place.
So I've been a couple of times, and it is what makes this story so interesting. I mean, Staten Island is having its moment, right? You've got Pete Davidson, buying the old Staten Island Ferry to turn into a comedy club. I think it's worth remembering that as we all sit in our homes and talk on our computers, if you work as a delivery person or a warehouse person or work in Walmart or any of these places, there was no work from home option for someone working in an Amazon, warehouse. And I think and the person who led the unionization charge in Staten Island, interestingly enough, his real push was about safety and his concern about, workplace safety. And I think it's hard to remember back 2 years ago, but, it was really scary, right? Being near people was scary, and who was wearing masks. And this was before there was a vaccine. And I just think it's worth our listeners remembering that, if you were trying to pay your bills, your option was go to work and pack, for Amazon, or don't get paid.
Yeah. For those who've had options in this pandemic, it has been an entirely different pandemic. And those options included not just working from home, but having better healthcare in the first place, having better community and social ties in the first place, having more financial resources in the first place. So yeah, this is a segment of labor that doesn't get to have a great resignation.
And by the way, and I'm guilty of this, what did you do when you were at home and you were working from home? You didn't go to stores, you ordered from Amazon. And so the demand to have some person whose name or face you didn't know pack your stuff in a box and then ship it and then have it arrive at your door, Amazon benefited from COVID, which, I'm sure that, the data is the data. Their sales are up dramatically. I think it's worth asking the question. So here's the thing we don't know. Amazon corporate was against the unionization movement, and they have to be really careful about how they suggest to their non-unionized employees that there will be some price to pay for unionizing without threatening them. And there's a lot of lawyers involved in how you say that. But workplace issues notwithstanding, Amazon has been in some ways, on the leading edge, in terms of, hourly wage, in terms of benefits, they're not, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, and maybe you'll disagree. I was going to say they're not a terrible company.
Well, and they're aggressively touting that employment brand on YouTube right now. My family, such a tangent. My family's raising a puppy. And so we have YouTube dog calming videos playing almost 24 hours a day. And I've noticed in the last week, probably because of these unionization movements, a steep uptick in these, first person gosh, I've never had a job that paid more than $10 an hour. I had to work 2 jobs. This is the first time I've only had to work one. Yes, it's hard work, and I didn't think I'd be physical enough to do it, but gosh, I can. So they are really, really trying to pull in people who will be a little starry-eyed about the good things that they do, because there are some, but at the cost of what in terms of workplace safety? I think they have some real questions to answer. But I also think in the media, this does get exaggerated in both directions. Sometimes I've seen very sensationalistic headlines about Amazon workplace safety, and I've dug into the data and contextualized them, and it wasn't necessarily more dangerous than other workplaces. That
By the way,
said,
has
no
your
workplace should be
puppy
dangerous.
is your puppy going to vote for unionization, or have they brought your puppy over to their side?
I don't know. We haven't asked him.
So I think this is an important, interesting story, and not just for Amazon. I think it plays to the larger question of work, hybrid work, what work is, remote work, being in buildings, being on the computer. I don't think there's any clear trajectory of where work is going. And I will tell you, I'm personally, conflicted on it. I mean, I do a lot of work remotely. I find it incredibly productive. Then I go into the office and I spend time with my colleagues, and I remember how much I miss that experience too. So work is going to change, whatever work is.
Let's hope it changes to something where more people participate in the upside of business, where basic human rights and safety are put front and center. And, work is a thing that could be a massive tool for change in our society, in lifting people who are marginalized in really, really dangerous, really, really awful ways. I'm a big fan of, I know unions are complicated, but I'm a big fan of employees having more power and having more participation in the upside of what they do.
Part of why I think Staten Island is such an interesting, maybe not a microcosm, is it's a very conservative place. It's very Republican. It's also blue collar. So if you're looking for a stereotype about what a new union worker looks like, I mean, it kind of bumps up into the libertarian, get the government out of my business. Like, I've stopped calling whatever those voters are conservative, because I've decided that's an unfair moniker. I mean, I don't think you can be about conservation and also pro coal.
It's just, the asterisk is what they're specifically conserving.
Yes. But I do think if I were Amazon sitting in my war room and concerned about unionization spreading across the country, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Well, I mean, actually, no, I take that back, because if other parts of the country are more Democratic, left, liberal, they would be they would be easier union converts.
So you think that's a sign that, even the places Amazon wouldn't have expected to go union are going?
Well, there's one union vote that's outstanding now. I think it's Alabama, where they don't, I think it's, I don't have it in front of me. I think the vote's so close, no one knows. But, I would say, sitting here early in April, yes, you'll see unionization spread across Amazon, would be my bet. Which brings us elegantly to Disney. So I love this story, and I love it for a variety of reasons. I don't even know where to start.
I mean, Disney plays this really, really wild role in Florida, where you have it's no exaggeration to say the entire world almost helicoptering in, parachuting down, experiencing the Disney brand, and then going home. And, they even like built their own hotels. So you don't really experience Florida per se as Florida when you go to Disney. And, I actually didn't know until you and I started talking about this that they have this weird, like their own courts, their own like government setup, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
And
they're
so
a
now
private.
that the two, they've been living in this like kind of den of whatever you want to call it, and now reality's striking, and boy, it's a interesting culture clash, isn't it?
So there's something called the Reedy Creek Law, and it was I don't know the history of it, but I should. When Disney was looking, when the company was looking to build, they negotiated with Florida and essentially got a carve out that says all of their property is a separate government that is owned and run by Disney, which includes police, fire, and ambulance, courts. It is essentially a separate state. And I mean, I think what would be fun to do is get a yellow notepad and do a line down the middle and figure out how many dollars Disney brings into Florida, and realistically, Disney can't leave, right? It's not like they can pick the park up and move it to Kentucky,
Right?
Though they could start another park somewhere and move all of their new develop. I assume they've got people on spreadsheets looking at all of the options.
The changing costs are quite high.
Yes. That being said, for DeSantis, he's all right. So first of all, there's so much to unpack here. So
it's not DeSantis alone, is it? He's got some help.
Yeah. So I rewatched the movie of the book 1984 the other day, and I had forgotten about this scene in the book and then in the movie called 2 Minutes of Hate, where all these people with these angry faces, and they're all just hating at whatever the thing is and that's Fox News, right? They're like, we're in kind of a tricky spot with Putin because we kind of hate him, but we kind of don't hate him. And okay, we need to hate something. And somehow, do they have a whiteboard, where they go, what are we going to hate this week? And they write, Hillary, it's a little dated. Biden, yeah, we hate him all the time. New Supreme Court justice, yeah, that might be a hateable thing. But somehow there was a conference call between DeSantis's people and the Disney people, and they said, and the Fox News people, and they said, let's hate on Disney.
Can you imagine running a company where your business model depends on your customers being miserable?
Well, there's other examples of that. Certainly the cigarette business, sold cancer for a really long time. But here's the thing about the Disney DeSantis alignment. Like, it's easy to forget what Disney owns. So let's just there's a list that's worth just going over.
And what it bought quite recently from the parent company, and filling the coffers. Yeah. Filling Murdoch's wallet even fuller if possible.
They bought 20th Century Fox from Murdoch in 2019 for $71 billion. So at the time, that was an interesting decision because, among other things, it was Murdoch saying, I don't trust my kids to run this big company. I got to sell off the family jewels to put cash in the bank because, I'll leave them with some of the assets, but the really valuable ones, I'm going to ship over to Disney. But it means that Disney owns just this unbelievable collection of unbelievably powerful brands. And I thought I had the list, but it hasn't popped up. But I don't think in real life, Americans can say they're angry at Disney, but in real life, are they not going to take their kids to Disney? That would be, are they not going to watch Disney Channel? And one of the things that's most disturbing is, you know, the head of Disney Entertainment is quoted all over Fox News as saying she wants 50% of all the characters in future Disney shows to be LGBTQ. And they refer to a conference call she was on. And if you actually look at the text of the conference call, she said nothing of the sort.
The truth is never going to get in the way of Fox telling a good outrage story.
And then it gets, replicated by Daily Wire, and then it ends up on Breitbart and kind of becomes part of the cycle. But the idea that I guess here's the thing I'm puzzled by. There's a math problem here, I think, which is if DeSantis is really running for president, and it certainly seems like he is, did somebody on his team figure out that net him going after, Snow White might not actually be a really good idea for like his presidential run?
I don't know. That's going to be more your area of expertise than mine. But
I have no expertise. It scares me. Or maybe the answer is that at this point, nobody thinks that far ahead.
I think lots of people on all corners of political spectrum love Disney. And I think if you can stir up outrage in something that is near and dear, people will fight harder. We see this in, this kind of conservative / authoritarian funded by Murdoch and Putin global movement going after schools, going after local school boards, going after local politics, right? Hitting people where they have strong emotional intensity, activating them with rage, giving them talking points, and then sending them to seize power is the only way a minority, which is what they are now, can seize and hold power when they are outnumbered and outflanked. And I think, Disney is so near and dear to so many people's hearts that they find that to be an excellent tool to pick up and wield.
I think that's right. By the way, I just have to read you one sentence from the bulk words coverage of the Disney thing because it's just so good. The lead sentence is, "You can be forgiven if you didn't have right-wing jihad against Disney on your bingo card for 2022. Yeah. Again, I wish I could see that whiteboard where they had a list of other, who else could they, I'll tell you who's next. I'll bet it. You heard it here first. The next one will be Apple.
Aren't they already going after? Yeah.
Well, it's pretty strategic. I think they tend to do one victim at a time. And they might actually get the CEO of Disney fired. Kara Swisher, who is politically very left of center and very smart, essentially says the current CEO has one mistake left, which I was surprised to read because that's, now to be fair, CEO Bob Chapek, whose name I've never, I should know that name and I don't. So,
well, he's fairly.
Yeah. But what I'm surprised at is, I guess I'm not sure what mistake Kara thinks he made. Maybe getting into politics at all.
There was no way they couldn't, right? There were a lot of people who were going to stop going to the parks if they went along with these, inhumane policies. Florida has a litany over the last year or two. Longer than that, right? Of absolutely categorically inhumane policies. And, people were probably going to stop parachuting through the swamp into Foreverland, so to speak.
And what do we know? We don't, is there data on what the Disney employee base looks like politically or in terms of diversity?
Well, they all walked out. There's data on how many walked out. I don't have that near to hand, but I'm sure there's some data from that.
Yeah, no.
Here's the thing. Yeah. All of this, everything that's going on in the world right now, the things that are just too atrocious for us to even talk about right now because they just are, comes down to humans cannot get along with each other without significant compromise, right? Without significant meeting in the middle. And boy, I know as a very peacefully divorced person that even when you're trying to, separate a thing and you think you're going out and you're in the middle, half the time I realize, like, wow, when I feel like I've gone about 70% out of the way to see the other side, I'm maybe 30% in. That aspect of human nature, layered on top of which there are identities, colors, orientations, levels of wealth, levels of class that have never had to go very far towards the middle ever. And they get so gobsmacked and shocked when everybody else is asking for even the tiniest bit, like everybody's still having to go towards the middle to get along. But the dominant groups with all the power and all the money are being asked to go slightly closer to the middle. That's all. And they're just not used to it. And it feels like oppression and it sparks outrage. And it's ridiculous. And I wish people would sit back and see it through the lens of, wow, I just never saw this because the world has always been coming to me, right? It has always been the rest of the world going 90% out of their way to fit the 10% I go out of my way with my identity. And man, if we could just plug that in at every level of the financial and political system, the world would look so much different.
So I've got the Disney assets, which I want to read to you, but just a sidebar story. There was a story over the weekend about an elderly couple that was out in their pontoon boat, and there were two young men that were on skidoos and the men got into a fight and they fell in the water, and then the elderly couple brought them onto the boat to try and save them, and then the fight expanded onto the boat, and in the end the elderly couple shot and killed the young man.
Wow.
Which led me, and I read the story twice to see if I missed the part where anybody asked the question, why would a 71-year-old husband and wife go out on a pontoon boat for an afternoon paddle with a weapon?
Oh, I don't find that to be a weird question. I think there's a pretty big overlap on that Venn diagram.
Yeah, I can't to shoot. Anyway, back to Disney, because here's what Disney now owns that were via the 20th Century Fox merger or acquisition. Consumer products, apps, books, clothing, jewelry, homeware, toys, console games. 4 strategic brands are Star Wars, Marvel, Disney, Pixar, the Muppet Studio, and then Disney Media Networks, which includes ABC Entertainment, ABC News, A&E, ESPN, Hulu, Marvel Entertainment, Vice, and Viceland. And then, of course, Parks and Resorts, Film and TV. And Film and TV is Lucasfilms, Marvel, Pixar. I mean, at the end of the day, I just have trouble believing that anybody in the 2 minutes of rage team did the math and went, yeah, this is going to work out for us. We should definitely go after every cherished brand, not counting, Snow White and all that stuff. I mean, the idea that Disney is a woke company, it's like, yeah, yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
And again, woke translates to, instead of going 10% out of my way, someone's asking me to go 15%, and I do not like it.
Yeah, I think that's, but I also think here's the optimistic take. So how many election cycles ago was it that gay marriage was the thing that Republicans used to get people to the polls out of some sense of fear? Was that 4 cycles ago or 6?
There were so many cycles where they continued doing that. I think it's hard to draw the line in the sand, but yes, right. It was fairly recent. I remember taking my kids out to the street of Cambridge in rainbow clothes and dancing to celebrate when it was finally law of the land.
And now it seems like, maybe there are people that remain on the sidelines uncomfortable, but I don't think there's a lot of debate over that. I don't think you're going to see, the Supreme Court turning back, equity in marriage.
Although, they're going to try.
All right. So just to wrap things up, let's talk about Apple for a minute, because Disney is not alone in this fight. And I do think that, so this is a piece from Politico. Apple wields its lobbying might against LGBTQ laws. Apple's an interesting company. Tim Cook is an interesting CEO. They don't make many mistakes. They're enormously successful economically. They're very diligent and disciplined about how they roll out product. They don't miss delivery dates. They don't have to recall iPhones because they were shipped, with missing parts. That being said, it's a hard place to work. And Tim Cook is one of the rare, CEOs in America who's out and seems to be able to, and this is what I liked about this story. It seems like their decision to support things politically aren't emotional. They're not, because it's no one's talking about Tim as the driver of this decision. It seems like it's the right thing to do for the company and for their customers.
Human rights issues always are, right?
Indeed, they are. So it does make me overpaying for my Apple charging block a little less painful. My $79 Apple charging block.
Again,
right.
So much of the current strife in the world is this increasingly tiny group trying to use bully tactics to control what is now the vast majority of how people think and how people feel. And if you're running a company and you're running these huge technologies and these huge media platforms that are kind of everything but the Murdochs, you see that most of your customers and most of your employees' needs are better met by fundamental human rights than this loud, angry, slim group, small group that is, doing the only thing they can now that they are so badly outnumbered.
Well, I hope you're right. Thank you. This has been a fascinating conversation. Unions are interesting. The woking of Disney, or the woking of Apple, is that even a word? Not really. Is interesting. We will be back again next week with Future Forward. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.